Don't follow the fallen, they've already fallen. That's why they keep seduce calling. Pay attention to
Grace
the
and
lesson.
completeness family. This is your sis, NuriYAH 1, also known as NuriYAH. Welcome to the Wisdom One podcast, YAHUAH'S family. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be discussing a very important topic, one that has been plaguing the family as well and leading us to dark roads and paths when we're supposed to be following his son's light, who is the light of our life and the light of our path and our journey, Yahushua the Mashiach. But we want to try not to be a fiend addicted to praise. Okay? So first of all, let's give all esteem to Yahuwah and his one and only son, Yahushua, the Messiah. Ruach Kadash be lifted and esteemed always. All right, family, we're just going to jump right into this. For those of you who thought the title was a little bit of a clickbait, let's go right into scripture and get started. So we're going to go to Yeshua, which is Isaiah chapter 14. And we're going to begin at verse 11 and continue to 15. It says, "Your arrogance has been brought down to the grave, and the sound of your stringed instruments," evidence of music there, "the maggot is spread under you, and worms cover you. How you have fallen from the Shamayim," meaning the heavenlies. "O Halil, son of the morning, you have been cut down to the ground. You who laid low the Gentiles, for you have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavenlies, the Shamayim. Let me raise my throne above the stars of all. Let me sit in the mount of meeting on the sides of the north. Let me go up above the heights of the clouds. Let me be like the Most High." Wow, right? Very important scriptures right there, YAHUAH'S family. In these verses, we find out a few key things. One is Hasatan's real name in Abri, which is very interesting. We'll get into that another day because it's kind of hidden in plain sight in some things that we see. We find out his crime and why he was kicked out of the Shamayim. That sin of wanting to be like the Most High, that got him removed from Yahuwah's presence. His arrogance, his pride, his over self-confidence. He said, let me be like the Most High. We have to be very careful. One of the most dangerous sins is when we want to be like the Most High. Not serve the Most High, but be like the Most High. And it's very often that we can get confused when words don't come out of our mouth. But do you know the very most distinct language that we speak is that one in our spirit when no words come out of our mouth? When we say it in our spirit and in our hearts, that is like so clear, almost raising our voice unto Yahuwah in the spiritual realm, because he hears us so clearly in that world and in that realm. So although our voice may never say it, in our hearts, it can speak loudly, especially with what we do. Now, these scriptures and all of this brings us directly to our topic, receiving praise, becoming addicted to praise. Is there such a thing? Is it something that's made up? Is it something that really can happen? Yes, this can happen, and it can happen quickly and suddenly. The enemy got full of gaha, which we went over that before, another form of pride in Abri, gaha, and decided he wanted to take Yahuwah's place. Full of arrogance. That's what he did. He wants to receive the praise of men. Receiving the praise of men is how you can become an addict. Yes, an addict, like a person on unhealthy pharmaceuticals that just can't get enough. We're going to go over that in a moment. Because see, all creation was created by ALUAH, for ALUAH. No one is to receive his esteem, praise, and or worship. Spirit beings and humans alike. Let all things that have breath give praise unto Yahuwah ALUAH. But then we even find that the trees and the flowers and insects, they even give their esteem to our Creator. The scripture has many verses telling us this. In Exodus 23, in YAHUAH, which is Matthew 4:10, in Exodus 20, verse 4 through 5. There's so many, but let's just conclude with this. And finally, we have Luke 4:8, which says, Yahushua answering him said, "Get behind me, Satan, for it has been written, you shall worship Yahuwah, your ALUAH, and him only you shall serve." Notice right at this moment in the scripture verse that Satan's goal remains the same, to receive praise and be like our ALUAH. Nothing has changed. And that scripture was spoken when our Mashiach was told to go into the wilderness, and there he was tempted. And that was the main goal. But Yahushua, Mashiach, corrected him using the word. Are we seeing a pattern here? If we position ourselves to receive praise, we then become like our enemy, seeking the praise of men, putting ourselves in a position to be like Yahuwah. Receiving praise is not for anyone but Yahuwah, his son, and Ruach Kadash, right? We were created for worship. We were created for worship, not to be worshiped. This is a crafty trick of the enemy, and we are tempted with this often. Now, there is a difference between receiving encouragement versus praise. Encouragement should fill our spirits. It should encourage us to want to pour out into others. This comes from a very wholesome place, a very Kodashah, Kadash, set apart place. And instantly the reflex is to always do what? Give all esteem to Yahuwah. We appreciate the encouragement. It fills us up, but we always give esteem to the Father and His Son. We always give esteem to ALUAH. We always give it to who it belongs to, even if it's authentic encouragement. See, pride doesn't encourage our spirit to do anything. It makes our flesh swell up and feel like we are ALUAH and feel like we're doing something special and makes our flesh and the physicality make our flesh feel big, bold, and, it breeds pride, toxicity, and feeds unclean ruah to around you. It creates an addictive habit of wanting more, wanting to take more. Remember, there's two traits always. There's the authentic, which is the spiritual truth that comes from Yahuwah. And then there's always the artificial that comes from Hasatan, that's counterfeit and fake. See, anything authentic and real coming from our Father, whatever we get, we want to do what? Give. We want to give. We don't want to take. We want to give. And whatever comes from the enemy does a complete opposite. We want to take from people. That's the flesh, because we want to feel good. We want to take, not give. It's an unhealthy habit to receive praise. Mashpa'ah, it can overpower anyone. It can have you trying to figure out ways to receive it. Like someone trying to figure out how to get their next hit. Seriously. Now, some of y'all thought I was just playing when I talked about being an addict. But let's get into it. Physically, when someone compliments you, there are chemicals that are released in your body. Isn't it amazing? ALUAH designed it so beautifully. And the enemy uses that beautiful design to try to construct destruction, right? By our own hands. Let's get back to this. One of the chemicals that is released is called dopamine. Now, we've heard of this here and there, but let's listen to the name, dopamine. That's why it's so easy to become an addict. Dopamine is the same chemical that is released when we first fall in love, when we smell some delicious baked goods in the oven, when we eat those baked goods and they taste delicious, or when we take time alone and meditate. See, dopamine naturally encourages our natural physical bodies to repeat certain behaviors to receive the same type of rewards in the future. Dopamine is associated with pleasure and reward. People very so often get addicted to dopamine release. Let me explain before we go into the next chemical that's released. This is why we are to always obey Yahuwah and do what he tells us to do. All praise belongs to him. And when people come to encourage us, We thank them, but give all esteem to Yahuwah. And you can feel the difference between flattery and praise and encouragement. Now, dopamine addiction occurs when a person becomes dependent on activities or substances that overstimulate the brain's dopamine pathways, causing obsessive behavior despite negative consequences. Family, this is how we get drug addicts. Yes, dopamine. You get a dopamine hit when you receive compliments physically. There's a chemical that's released. That is why you see some people out here literally losing their mind to get compliments, comments, likes, and attention. Literally an addict, addicted to praise. We must always follow what the word says and be careful, because if we do that also, we're going to be more focused on what? Living in spirit and in truth. And the physicality is not going to dominate. Our carnal body is not going to dominate what happens to us. We are led by our spirit. But if we place this so-called praise, or when people tell us things in the right position, we don't have to worry about it, because we just give it right to the Father. Now, and his son, ALUAH, Father, Son, Ruach Dash. All right. Another chemical that's boosted when we receive compliments is oxytocin, also known as a helper's high. Yes, Mashpa'ah family, you can look this up yourself. This chemical makes you feel real good. Now, those two in combination is something that you get just off of those compliments. There have been tests done physically. This is how it affects you. Now, we already know if we receive praise, there's spiritual consequences, and we've gone over those things and how the enemy and unclean raw try to entice us to do this. And one of the most dangerous things is we identify with our arch nemesis, Hasatan. And it has spiritual implications as well. So it doubles down on the strength, and you feel like this is something that you need, that you have to get. But here's the interesting part about these hormones that are released. This is really interesting. Do you know that if you consciously engage in random acts of kindness, encourage others, speak kindly to others, it has a more powerful effect than just a dopamine, oxytocin hit. Physically speaking upon our bodies. It actually has a more powerful effect on our mind and body, because it can actually boost our mood, boost our serotonin, which is another hormone that has the power to change, physically help release hormones to affect our mood. So you not only get dopamine, you get serotonin and dopamine. Literally, when seen in a study, your brain actually lights up. Wow, Mashpa'ah family. We are called to be the what? Light in this dark world. And the studies show that your brain lights up and does beautiful things. Wow. Now, we are all about the spiritual, but it's amazing how we are perfectly designed, and that Yahuwah would create us He would design us. We're not put together like robots. We were designed, every single part of us. He even gave us these hormones to be released so that we could enjoy this life that he has blessed us with all the more. Think about that. And true to his word, giving is better than receiving, because when you give kindness, when you show kindness, it has a higher impact and releases more of these positive, which can be positive hormones intended to be hormones that are positive, than the complete opposite. Then when we take and become addicts. But when we give, it can actually alter the way we see in the day. Physically, there's been implications of showing that. And spiritually, we know that's the truth through his scripture and his word. Just ponder that for a small moment. Okay, again, let's go back into this. So when I said that you can become addicted, yes, dwelling in that, you most certainly can. The Ruah wants us to give love and unity. The flesh wants us to take and feed our desires, praise and applause. We are called to give all esteem to Yahuwah, ALUAH. Giving our gifts back to fellowshipping as Ahad one. This has a greater impact on everything around us. And we not only see that in the studies physically with these hormones, but we see that spiritually and how people come to him. He said, how will they know? They said that the scripture says they will know who you are by how you love one another. And we'll be speaking about those chemicals and other things and other talks as well, because they're very interesting to learn about. It's been a really eye-opening study for me personally. Yahuwah knows what we can handle. We must give all esteem to him. Let's give him all esteem. And truly, it is better to give than to receive. The enemy seduces us to think the opposite. If we listen, we become enslaved to our flesh instead of a servant to Yahuwah to serve others. That's what this is about. And I don't care how much some people will say it. Oh, all praises. But they don't mean that. There's something dwelling in their heart. And they'll say it real quick. Sometimes they don't. But they let the enemy slip. They may say it, but they let the enemy let that penetrate in. We must check ourselves moment by moment that we be in Yahushua, our Mashiach, because if not, it's easy to receive something and then let it make us feel as if we're something that we're not. And all of a sudden we're on the wrong road and not even realizing it. Let's read Hebrews 13:15. Through him then, let us continually offer up a slaughter offering of praise to Yahuwah, that is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. Family, we don't sacrifice animals. We offer slaughter offerings of praise with our lips to Yahuwah through his one and only son's Sham, meaning name. That's why this is so serious. Think about it. When we give esteem to Yahuwah according to his word in Hebrews 13:15, it is a slaughtering offering from our lips to Yahuwah ALUAH through his one and only son. So imagine that when we receive the praise from someone's lips, we are accepting an offering meant for him. Let it not be so. We can receive encouragement and give all esteem to Yahuwah. And we can give authentic encouragement, all esteem to Yahuwah and his son. But we must never take an offering of praise from anyone or give it to anyone. All esteem and praise belongs to Yahuwah, ALUAH. His son, Yahushua Mashiach, Ruach Kadash, be esteemed. Alam. Well, family, we've come to the end of this particular meeting. However, I want you to remember that you are loved with an ever-enduring ahab love. And we must always continue in ahad, unity, and ahab, love. Shalom, Mashpa'ah family.
The hooked souls with the Vicodin, coral snakes with the human face, 12 feet steep, wicked water crafts, spiritual fire trait, trident knee bender, soul snatchers from another realm, planet man in the hexagon, refuting the great I am. So the word flesh to save the lost with his cannon stretch. That deep love gave a healing breath. That salvation, call it introspect. Started with belief in daily WordPress. Yahuwah's son is not a silhouette. He was rescued to now repentant man. At the end, he manhandles death.